Hi there, it's Katie Allison here from Mid-Sussex Sports Therapy. I'm going to take you through a 10-minute lower body stretch and mobility session. So let's start. One foot in front of the other on your mat. I'm going to go right foot in front of my left, left knee down on the ground, and I'm starting with opening up the hip flexors and a stretch through the hip flexors. So we're leaning into our right leg, feeling the stretch through our left side with our left knee down on the ground. If left knee on the ground is not comfortable for you, then pop a little cushion or pillow underneath. That's absolutely fine. So I'm moving in and out of this stretch, starting to open up the muscles on the front of the thigh, our hip flexors, and into our quadriceps a little bit. So moving backwards and forwards. I'm pushing the pelvis and the hips forward to really feel like I'm getting a stretch through that front of thigh. And I'm moving in and out of it 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Take my foot a little bit further forward as I increase and ease through my lower body. And holding it at the end, pushing those hips forward, as I said, increasing that stretch through this front of upper thigh into your hip flexors. And then we're going to make a combination where we take our weight backwards and take our weight forwards, hip flexors into hamstrings on the opposite side. So as I take my weight forwards, opening up through the hip flexors, as I take my weight back, stretching through the hamstrings on the right leg. Put my fingers down for support if that's easier, and moving backwards and forwards. As I come back into the hamstring stretch, I can bring my toes up and I'll feel it more through the calf, or I can let my toes stay pointing forwards and I'll feel it more through the hamstring. You need to lift the bottom up to get that stretch into the hamstring. Hold the toes down. Last one. And again, pausing here at the far end. Toes up and toes down. Feeling the stretch move through the back of the leg and thigh. You can even rotate the foot in and out in this position as well, to vary where you feel the stretch, with more on the outer back of thigh or more through the inside. And then we're going to come back, weight on the front leg, and we're going to pull up the heel towards the bottom on the back leg and start to feel the stretch now coming into the quadriceps on the front of the left side, left thigh. Again, I've shortened my distance between my two legs a little bit to enable that stretch. I can probably take it a little bit further forward so I really get into the, yeah, there we go. Feel it a bit more through the quads there. Now I'm right on the front of my knee, on the fleshy part. I'm not up on the kneecap. I've rolled forwards to be on the front of the knee. If that's still uncomfortable, you can pop a cushion or a pillow underneath there to soften it a little bit, but I'm not directly on the kneecap, I'm on the front section. And again, depending on your flexibility, the heel might be right up towards the bottom, or you might be more in this position here, further away. I'm opening up through the front of the thigh as well, because our quadriceps, or one of our quadriceps, moves over the hip joint and also over the knee joint, so we need to stretch both of those areas to really benefit from this stretch. I'm sitting up nice and tall, opening up all through that thigh. If you need something there for balance, that's absolutely fine. A chair or a stool will help you with that. And relax that one down. We're then going to go into what we kind of call the pigeon, or what's in yoga terms called the pigeon stretch. And again, depending on your flexibility, your leg will be in slightly different positions, but the aim is really to have your shin parallel with the front of the mat. I'm not quite there yet on this side, so my foot dropping back a little bit. And the other kind of key aspect is that we sit into that stretch. We're not kind of rocking off it. We square off our hips and push down into that stretch. And that might mean that you're a little bit higher, and others of you will be a lot lower down to the ground. Depends on your flexibility. But this stretch here really opens up into the outside of the hip, the gluteal muscles, around that lateral hip. And breathe here to help increase the stretch. I like to keep hold of my foot because I find it sort of starts to slide further and further down the mat. So encourage it to stay nice and parallel with the front of the mat. So I'm not quite there on this one. And keep an eye on those hips to try and keep them nicely aligned and really feel that stretch into that right glute side. Now pushing the left side of my pelvis down towards the mat, and the more I do that, I feel that stretch through that right side. So those of you that are more flexible, really feel that you're pushing that left side down towards the mat, and you'll feel it more on that right side. Right, we're going to come over to a second glute stretch. We're going to stick with the right side on this case, so bringing our right leg across our left leg. I'm sitting up nice and tall, so I'm pulling the fleshy bits of my bottom away, so I'm sitting right down on my sitting bones. Sitting up nice and tall, hugging my right leg in towards my left shoulder, and then I'm rotating away. And again, this is the stretch for your right glutes. So you want to be sitting up nice and tall, knee into shoulder, and rotate. Feeling it all through this right lateral outside of your hip. And breathing here. Okay, so I'm staying sort of 30 seconds-ish in each stretch. If there's one stretch that you particularly want to hold for a little bit longer, absolutely fine, hold it for a little bit longer before you move on to the next one. Okay, so we're going to go on to the other side. So we did right foot forward the first time, so we're going to go left foot forward. And again, just slowly starting to move in and out of this stretch. Opening up for our right hip flexors this time with that left foot forward. So these stretches, these mobility movements are really good if you're tight through the muscles within your lower body. So that's often the case with people that do a lot of running, cyclists, or even if you spend a lot of time sitting at a desk. When we sit at a desk, in that sitting position, our hip flexors are held in a shortened position, and for many people that can result in hip flexors being short and tight. And so opening them up through these kind of a lunge type stretch is a really nice sort of counterbalance for that posture, that sitting posture that you get on a bike or on a chair. So lengthen my stride a little bit, try and keeping my hips nice and straight. I'm not kind of rocking out of it, pushing my right hip flexors forwards, falling over. As I said, you can always have something there for balance. Nice. And now we're going to take it into that hamstring and hip flexor kind of combination. I tend to just do 2 or 3 movements first, just to kind of get used to the movement, get your body used to the movement, and then you can hold each one a little bit longer as you start to increase the mobility within the body. So this kind of mobility session can be done after you've exercised. It can also be done on a day that you're on a rest day where you're not exercising. You can use this kind of mobility session to help wake up the body in the morning or after a day at work. And if you need to focus a little bit more on the hamstrings, then spending a bit more time in the hamstring stretch position is absolutely fine. And again, we can have toes up, we get a little bit more of the calves, or we can have toes down, lifting that bottom up, where we can get a little bit more into the hamstrings. So you can tailor it a little bit to focus on what your body needs. And again, we can rotate the leg out, or we can rotate the leg in to change the focus of the stretch. And now we're going to go into that quadricep stretch. Again, finding your balance, rolling forward on that back leg so that you're on that fleshy part of the knee at the front, not directly on the kneecap. Finding that point and then pulling, gently coaxing, pulling the heel towards the bottom, increasing that stretch on the right side, and at the same time pushing the hips forward. If you kind of collapse out of it, you lose that stretch at the top of the thigh. So I also want you to still feel like you're pushing your hips forward, which might mean your heel then goes a bit further away from your bottom. But to get that really deep stretch through those quads, and I can really feel that on my right side. I need to breathe. And coming out of that. Okay, then we're going to go into the pigeon stretch for the left leg. So similarly to the right, take your left foot over to the right side of the mat, and then we're going to slowly allow the knee, drop the knee down towards the mat, trying to keep that shin parallel with the top of the mat. Again, mine doesn't really want to go completely parallel. On this side, I'm going to hold on to my foot again, and again, what I'm trying to do is not sit out of the stretch, but sit across and into it. So I'm pushing, trying to push my right side down to keep my hips, keep my hips as square as possible on the mat. To get that stretch into those right glutes. I'm tight, so into my left glute, sorry, and I'm tight through this side. So it's a challenge, and that is, I'm getting it there. Again, different of you will be in different positions for this. Some of you, as I said, will be really parallel with that shin. For me, that pokes me up too high. And you really want to push that right side, pushing those right pelvis, hip into the floor to feel that stretch through that left side. And then a second glute stretch. I find that, so we're going to go left leg over right, pulling that knee in towards the shoulder, sitting up on that sitting bones, nice and tall, and then rotating. I find that it's quite nice to have a couple of different glute stretch options as they get different parts of the gluteal muscles, and it's quite nice to have that kind of different combination. And on some days you might find that the pigeon style stretch is more effective for you. For other days you might find this particular stretch more effective for you. So it's quite nice to have a couple of different options in your kind of repertoire that you can try to see which one gets the stretch better for you on a particular day, depending on what you've done. Using the breath, on that in-breath getting nice and tall, on that out-breath increasing the rotation and focusing on that stretch through the outside of that thigh into the gluteal muscles. As I said, you can hold these stretches for 30 seconds-ish, but if there's one that you find you're like, oh, that's really good, you can hold it for a little bit longer. so that was your 10-minute mobility stretch session for your lower body. I'll see you again.